Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your true hill phenom, SP3, along with the princess of all the true hails, Miss Krssi Luv. And we are back
Hello, hello, hello.
once again with episode 7, season 2 of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV. This time we have David Schultz and the slap heard around the world. A very interesting one. It's like 40 years in the making, this whole big story that came out. What was your overall thoughts on the episode before we get into the whole timeline of this documentary?
Uh, this episode is just like the episode with our uncle, at the cookout. He was his character always. What was homeboy's name?
Uncle New Jack, Uncle Jerome.
Uncle Jerome, Uncle New Jack. He is like that. He was a character, and he was that till the day he is going to leave this earth.
Hey, you gotta respect it. And before we get into the whole timeline of this documentary, guys, if you enjoyed this video, push the like button and of course push the subscribe button. Stay notified and check out our playlist of all our Dark Side of the Ring reviews, so you can watch along with us and hear what we thought about season 2. So before we got to get into it, so to start off the documentary, they kind of talked about the rise of professional wrestling in the early 80s, and then we were introduced to David Schultz, Dr. D, David Schultz. Is this your first experience learning about him?
I remember seeing him, but now but I was little, like I didn't put two and two together. So now I was like, okay, who is he? And I remember seeing him. He looks like Sid Justice's dad. Like
True.
he's a
It's
carbon
true.
copy of Sid Justice. That's
It's
what he looked
true.
like.
He's Sid Justice, but a better promo.
Way better. So I mean, he looks
Uh,
like Sid's dad, and it's just And then he had a kid, and Sid Justice, Dr. D Sid Justice.
the whole thought process for a professional wrestler in the 1980s, that's what David Schultz was, because his first line of the whole episode says, yeah, I'm David Schultz. I'm about the greatest pro wrestler in my opinion. I died laughing. I died laughing for a legit 3 minutes. I was
And I'm
like,
like, what? Like who? What? This
that,
hillbilly? Like
that's the most 80s professional wrestling thing to say, because every 80s professional wrestler, if you didn't think you were the greatest pro wrestler, you probably didn't survive out of the 80s. So I respect it. I
Yep.
respect it. Then, of course, we were introduced to a recurring character on this season of Dark Side of
I
the Ring.
I swear he might be a shithead. Like he said, he called who did he call a shithead? I don't remember.
He
But
called many people shitheads.
listen, I love Jim Cornette. I mean, yeah, he's like the biggest hillbilly, but he is like a historian. He is a man of knowledge and of facts, and just like a just a plethora of just like stories. The amount of stories that he knows and has, like he pulled out like he pulled out newspapers from like the 1920s that he had
1920s, 1930s,
that he
yeah,
had
talking
in his
about.
house. Like who has like he has like they should make a museum from all the stuff that he got.
Well, his house is, a lot of people call it a real life wrestling museum, because he
Like
has so much artifacts from all timelines of professional wrestling. He talked about it in the Montreal Screwjob episode. He just has this knowledge in the back
he's
of his head.
yes, but Jim Cornette the biggest shithead ever. So
So
I love it, but I love it though.
so Cornette and Schultz talk about Dr. D getting trained by Herb Welsh
Mhm.
and basically beating him down, kind of giving him the old school, kind of how we would say it, the dungeon type of training, the Stu Hart type of training. And then he taught him the art of kayfabe and protecting the business.
He thought it was real. He was like, "Oh well, some of the guys he was training with, they was like, hey man, you gotta tell him that this is just like pretend. Like you don't have to, be choking me so much, man. Like this you gonna kill. He gonna hurt somebody. You got to take care of him." So the man kind of like took him underneath his wing and like kind of like guided him into the right way of kayfabing.
Yes, and as he gets into learning the kayfabe, he becomes a hell of a promo. Those promos that they showed in the beginning, I was like, man, this guy was ahead of his time. He's just a
Yeah,
real
yeah.
life bad guy, badass type of dude. And then they talk about him working with the immortal Hulk Hogan, them becoming friends and working in the Memphis area, which
Him
their work
living at his house.
they were really good friends, living in his house with the Hulkster, and then their work in Memphis leads to Vince McMahon around 1983, catching Vince McMahon's eye and wanting to bring in Hulk to the WWF. This is around the time of I think the Rocky movie and everything. It kind of just all the stars aligned for Vince to kind of peg Hogan as the guy he wanted to build the whole conglomerate of WWF around.
Yeah.
And then Hogan convinces Vince to bring in Dr. D.
Yep, because they had a good rivalry. They had great matches, great chemistry. They were telling the stories very well. So he was like, "Sure, bring him up there." He got a call, and then he was up there, and he was Dr. D.
And Dr. D and Hulk, they work around the East Coast scene, the whole WWF tour scene. They showed footage of old promos and vignettes. This was probably my favorite part of the whole episode of Dr. D on Tuesday Night Titans. So,
yes.
So, like we said, this YouTube channel is for wrestling fans by wrestling fans. Go to WWE Network. Go to Tuesday Night Titans. It's in the in-ring content on WWE Network, and you could go back and watch these Dr. Schultz vignettes with him shooting a gun at the roof of
his house.
Into his house, Vince freaking out on him, and then him verbally abusing his wife and his son. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
I love the next day that the police came looking for him. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh man, he's like, those was paid actors. That wasn't even my family.
For domestic violence and child abuse. Yes. Awesome. And then we are introduced to, I think that every one of these episodes, outside of really, I would say Uncle Romy Rome, New Jack episode, where he was both the protagonist and antagonist of the documentary. Kind of sort of the same way with I would say the Jimmy Snuka and the Chris Benoit, Nancy Argentino were the baby faces, the protagonists of those stories. In this one, Schultz is the protagonist, even though he played an antagonist his whole career. And then we're introduced to the biggest heel of this whole documentary, probably the person I hated the most out of this whole season 2, John Strolzo.
Yo, and I'm like, this is a prestige news man. Like, I was like, this is the news from 2020, man. Like, he done did all these, but you a cold-blooded snitch, money hungry. Like, you just like one of those people that get in the car accident just waiting for they injury money, they check. They was like, oh no, I'm about to get this, this car accident money, this check, about to get my lawsuit going.
I'm about to get this bag.
And he didn't even get that much money.
And basically, even in his introduction to John Strolzo, like literally within 5 minutes of them introducing him, he kind of puts in a nutshell his whole problem with professional wrestling. He was an amateur wrestler, who felt like these guys, who felt jealousy. Like honestly, he was jealous.
He had a vendetta the whole time.
He had a jealousy against professional wrestling because they got all the stardom, they got all the fame. Even for an NBC reporter on 2020, WWF was bigger at the time than even him. So that took us to our first break. When we come back from break, Cornette covers the expose done in the 1930s about professional wrestling, and then segueing it into Strelzel's attempt to have an expose on professional wrestling, which introduces us to Eddie Mansfield. What was your thoughts on Eddie Mansfield? The I would say he is the lower card antagonist of this episode.
What did he say? He said a rich woman's dream or something like that. He said it was his part of his tag name. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, sir, have several seats, sir. And then when the way Jim Cornette tells him he was a nobody, he was a has-been, like...
He was a never was, basically. That's what Cornette kind of said. And Mansfield talks about not having health insurance and being blackballed from the business because he spoke up, which led to him calling ABC and becoming the wrestler most known for trying to expose the business on 2020. He shows Strussel the tricks of the trade, showing him how you don't have to hurt your opponent to do the performance. Showing him, and then the Cornette, the part that got him the most upset was him exposing how blading was done and where they hid the blades and everything. And Strussel throughout this is just very condescending about professional wrestling.
He was the heel of this whole episode. He is the vicious, evil person that made this episode like, yo, Dr. D was the innocent party. He was just there, like,
He was a victim of circumstances.
Correct.
The circumstances and the situation around him was a lot bigger than Dr. D, and he just got the shit end of the stick when it comes to all of this. But Stossel is just he's manipulative. He just seems like very, very scummy.
Right, like, and he said, like, the man showed me a few moves in the ring, like I did a little couple of bumps, and like he had a vendetta from day one to do this whole interview that he wanted to do, or this whole news report and documentary on wrestling. And you wanted to see why, and he was asking people, do you think this is real? And people were like, yeah, this was real. Heck, exactly, we all thought it was real at once upon a time, but don't mess it up for us. Like, we will eventually grow up and find out, what's happening, but Jesus, like, don't ruin it.
And where was this type of like agenda against movies and TV shows? Like, all movies and TV shows, people for one thing or another believed they were real in some way. Correct. And you just wanted to have an agenda against professional wrestling.
And then he's like, he didn't even say wrestling, he said wrestling. And then he said, like, it's not even a real sport. Like, he's like, oh yeah, it's entertainment. Like, you downplayed the whole thing from the beginning. Like, you deserve more than that slap that you got.
But also, Schultz and Cornette kind of dog out and express a lot of anger to this day about Eddie Mansfield and his attempt to really expose the business. Eddie Mansfield did show a little bit of remorse for what he did, because he realized that he was taken advantage of by Stossel at the end of the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the day in question, where Stossel sets out to confront the WWF at Madison Square Garden. Stossel shows up, and he's given access by WWF and Vince McMahon. And Schultz tells the story about Vince approaching him backstage, and about the interview with Stossel. So Schultz says Vince said, "Stay in character." This guy is trying to say wrestling is fake. He's trying to do this type of expose interview, and we need to have someone who's a representative of the business, and he needs him to stay in character, which leads him to Stossel saying that he thinks that wrestling is fake. And what did the five fingers say to the face? Slap! That takes us to our second break, and then we
show Jim Cornette looking at the video. He's like, man, he didn't even hit him that hard. Like, yo, like, he could have killed that man, but he didn't even really hit him hard enough. Like, and he was like, he got back up and he got hit twice supposedly or whatever.
Yeah. He said he got hit in the ear, which that goes against what he said in court. He said he got hit in the face. Mm-hmm. He said his ears was ringing. He felt his gun.
Yep. He couldn't take. He had a baby at the time. He couldn't change her diaper when she would scream or when she would cry. All this stuff. Like he was such a liar, son. Like
not only did he have physical harm, he had emotional abuse.
Until the lawsuit was over. Liar.
So they talk about Schultz on that same day where he slapped Stossel. He basically said that he slapped him for rude manners. He said it's the same thing that his mama used to do to him. If he said something rude, he would get smacked. So he did the same to Stossel. I thought that was a great answer. That's a great explanation. You disrespected me. You disrespected the business. You disrespected all my coworkers. You get smacked.
Correct. Yep.
Hey, teach yourself. You wanted to learn if wrestling was real,
and this is what it is. Yeah.
Learn the hard way. Schultz faces Antonio Inoki that same night. Then come into the back to hear that Stossel is possibly suing him in the WWF.
And he said, Schultz went and sent his lawyer to John, and it was like, hey, this is what happened. My boss, he tried to like fix it, but then come to find out that they was not gonna sue him. They would sue him Vince.
He's like, wow. And then Vince tries to get Schultz to sign a waiver or a document or a statement saying that he is 100% responsible for his actions and what he did. And Schultz says, bullshit,
Yep.
no. Thank you, Schultz. Thank you, Dr. D. Thank you. WWE doing the shady shit that they've done this whole entire season.
And try to turn it over on other people. Yep.
So also sued WWF for damages. As that's going on, Schultz is sent to Japan.
And for a few months, yep, to get some of the heat off of him, but it didn't work that way because they wanted to use that heat and bring more people to watch to him, and it just follow him everywhere he went.
So when he's in Japan, he talks about how a booker basically wants him to smack a reporter out there, and they set it up where he smacks a reporter. It's publicated in like the Tokyo Sports magazine, and he becomes a bigger name out in Japan. 8 weeks later, he didn't
want to do it because he was like, if you don't write it down on the paper, I'm not doing it. So he's still a man by the book, going by everything. If you don't have it in a script, I ain't doing it.
Absolutely. He smartened up after that first time. Like, I'm not playing around anymore. So Stoutsu talks about all like the stress and everything that he went through. Mansfield talks about the heat that he got for the piece. 8 weeks later, it comes out after the whole incident happens. Schultz talks about all that stuff in Japan. Stoutsu sues WWF for damages due to the physical and emotional damages that he suffered.
So supposedly.
So he's even sent to a WWF
lawyer, and he's like, oh, you have just some distress that you just like just harboring your feelings, and there's nothing really wrong with you, which was probably true, but nevertheless, he was like, you're trying to pay me like whatever, screw you. That's his words, not mine. And he just waited till it just all settled out. And they paid him $280,000 or something like that.
$280,000 is what Strauss was paid in the settlement for the lawsuit. And he says the pain went away when he was paid.
That's great. Mind you, I'm sure he was making way more than that.
He's an ABC reporter.
One of the top news shows on television. 2020. Come on. You mean to tell me you were strapped for cash? No.
He had the comfort, that money comfort him emotionally so he could take care of his young baby.
You had a vendetta against the whole wrestling industry.
Absolutely.
Why?
He definitely did. So as the lawsuit is settled, McMahon prepares for the first WrestleMania. They talk of Mr. T and WWF. Schultz talks about his feelings, feeling like Mr. T shouldn't be working at WrestleMania.
He was in his feelings for sure. Poor thing. I mean, he was a heel at the time. He should, they should have been using him. Yes. However, Vince, like Jim Cornette said, he wants to be the Walt Disney of wrestling, which I thought was like a great comparison, because he wants a more family oriented. He wanted to remove himself from the blood and all that stuff and make it more like cartoony, like he said, and more commercialized where everyone could just come and enjoy it, making it a more family atmosphere.
Yeah, making it more universal, so for everyone to come, which I get and I understand. And I understand the placement of Mr. T at WrestleMania. Right. But I just feel like Schultz could have found a spot. There was a lot of spots that they could have filled with Schultz in some type of way.
We've seen that WrestleMania 1. There's a lot of it. Could have been. He could have seen. Then
I would have took a Schultz promo on that WrestleMania show. That was tough to rewatch. Going back, watching it with. Schultz says he did not think Mr. T belonged there. He showed resentment. They talk about Mr. T being backstage being in a hotel one day, and Schultz talking to him in the hotel, and Jay Strongbow coming up to him and telling him that Vince said if you're going to bother Mr. T, that he should just fire you. And Schultz says, "Well, fire me." He's a badass. He called.
Yeah, he said. He said. Well, he was like, "Well, you're fired."
So he says he's fired. Schultz gets dressed. He goes down to watch a match with, I think he said Pat Tanaka. And Mr. T is in the front row. So he said that as he goes to the front, he approaches Mr. T. Immediately, Jay Strongbow, as well as security and other officials,
removed him. So
unnecessary.
So unnecessary.
Dragged him. The cops pulled guns and pointed him at his head. In the back. It sounded like very extreme, but from what Hulk Hogan said on the Steve Austin show back in 2019, they aired his comments. He said that Schultz came out of the ring and slapped Mr. T, which led to his firing as well as this whole incident. So, wrestlers,
and it's like
everything with a pinch of salt. Hulk Hogan is not the most honest professional wrestler, but I would say that it's more likely that Schultz showed resentment and was angered by Mr. T and did something to Mr. T that led to the cops doing that, because it did not add up from what Schultz said he did to what the cops did.
Correct. Like they're not just gonna pull out no gun for you because you went and sat to go watch watch the people in the ring. Come on now, sir. Exactly. But it's okay, he's still Dr. D. Like that's what he believes he is.
Hey, he's my guy, man. He gained my respect so much throughout this episode. There's footage of Hogan putting a sleeper on a reporter on TV.
The Master Man from Law and Order. I was like, no. I was like, yo.
Choked him out.
And homeboy was like, and he was like, yeah, if you do that to me, if you're gonna talk smack, this is what happened.
So this leads to another.
Why did he get in trouble?
Another under-the-table payment from WWF, it seems, to kind of keep quiet about that whole thing. And yeah, Schultz talks about how he didn't get in trouble for that same thing, which Cornette made a lot of sense here. Mm-hmm. Why would Vince fire Hulk Hogan in 1985?
And he has the whole WrestleMania. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't get the logic of Schultz even saying that, but Schultz talks about how Hogan basically turned his back on him after the whole incident with Mr. T and his fighting.
He became a cash cow. What are you talking about?
Hogan's one of the biggest egos in professional wrestling, So yes, Hogan, one of the biggest heels in backstage and one of the biggest egos in professional wrestling, turns his back on Schultz. Schultz shows a lot of resentment even to this day about it. He talks about how he tries to get into a couple of the smaller promotions, but feels that he is being blackballed.
Leaving Vince did it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's not gonna lie and make that up,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Vince McMahon, I don't put that past him at all.
Nope. He's like that.
And honestly, with the publicity Schultz would have gotten after the whole slap heard around the world, this would have been an excellent time for the NWA to pick him up. NWA to pick him up, bring him in, and make him one of their top heels. That just makes sense to me. Feud him with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and you would have made money in 1985.
Oh, man, that would, yo. But, better days that came ahead for him,
Absolutely. He explains how he then left the wrestling business and became, not only was he the greatest professional wrestler in his own opinion, he went on to become the greatest bounty hunter.
That's hilarious.
So he says a friend in law enforcement gets him into bounty hunting. He talks about his first capture. I just loved him talking about his bounty hunting. This legit should have been a reality. This should have been one of the first reality shows.
That was Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's him.
It seems like it was all based on Dr. D.
It does. Okay, so we know we're in the same boat. Okay, great. Yep.
So
I'm listening to him. I'm like, wait, oh my God, is he Dog the Bounty Hunter? But for real, without all the crap that man was wearing, I was like, what? Wow.
The original wrestling bounty hunter.
Correct.
They show footage of his actual bounty hunting, which was begs the question: why wasn't this a documentary earlier? Or where was I for when this documentary came out? If it's come out, please put in the comment section below where I can find this. I want to see the Dr. D, the Bounty Hunter documentary.
Like it was like, was he doing the bounty hunting in Japan? Like I was like, it was that Chinese writer or Japanese? Like I was like, he was somewhere looking for people, and the man was like, sure, I could. I was so happy to see this man when I was leaving. I was so happy he captured me. What? Are you kidding me?
It was like a star, a celebrity was actually
He was
captured.
like, you're Dr. D. I was like, what? I was like, yo, you can't be, yo. This was a great episode. This was amazing.
This was awesome. They talk about Vince trying to get legislation to make professional wrestling for the government to look at professional wrestling as entertainment and not sport. So
and
in
not make them pay so much fines and make them pay out so much out of their pockets. So he started to like tell them like, hey, we're entertaining. We already predict what's happening. So he like kind of like lets everyone know like, yeah, this is not like real fighting.
Which a lot of people talk about, that was the day the wrestling business was ruined. Even if you listen to Jim Cornette on this episode and Dr. D on this episode, like a lot of the traditionalists of professional wrestling feel like this was like one of Vince McMahon's biggest crimes ever. Yeah. 1989, Vince tries to get government legislation, gets free of government legislation against professional wrestling. Mansfield feels like this is the moment that Vince justified what he did in exposing the professional wrestling business. And Mansfield, where the line of the episode, when he compares slavery to professional wrestling. Slavery to professional wrestling. He said the slaves got free, but they just forgot about the professional wrestlers. I legit, I'll just put it down, like that, like I was just stunned.
And then it's like people that do things like that. You be like, how do you like? You don't understand what you're saying, sir. Like, you don't get it. You will never get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't put... It's like apples to oranges. One is orange, one is red. Like, they don't go hand in hand. Like, they're not the same. Like, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, but, they forgot about the wrestlers. What? Now, and I get what he was trying to fight for. Yes, you guys should have healthcare. You should have 401k. All of those things are great points. However, they should be smart with their money. Put their monies, if you are making a decent amount of money, put your money where it should go so that when you do leave this or do you have something, God forbid, happen, you are okay. But yes, they should. I agree. They definitely should have healthcare. They put their bodies and everything at risk. I definitely think that these type of things should be in order for them.
Absolutely. Like, I get the point of what he was going for and what he was trying to get, but he just did it in the wrong way. He just doesn't know how to talk in public places, and obviously from this documentary, he proved that once again. Mm-hmm. But Mansfield, just have a seat. After this documentary, have a seat. You are officially the LVP. Not even John Stossel. Eddie Mansfield, the LVP of this episode of Dark Side of the Ring.
Correct.
He says that he basically is asked if he forgives John Stossel for ruining his career and therefore ruining his life. And he says that only God can forgive, and he's not God. basically saying that he does not forgive John Stossel for ruining his life and career.
Yep, it's crazy. It's just, I don't know.
Good times. I think the only person's reaction who was worse than Eddie Mansfield in response to John Stossel is when they asked John Stossel at the end if you could say anything to Dr. D, David Schultz. What would it be? No, he didn't say screw. He said, fuck you, David.
You know what? You're right. He did.
He deadass 100% sounded like a Karen. He sounded like a Karen. He's like, fuck you, David. Fuck you, David.
Screw you. Like, oh, you're kayfabing right now, sir, because you don't want Dr. D to come to you at all.
What that smoke? You need to have a seat, calm down. This man is 100% legitimately still salty that his whole career on ABC reporting on 2020, he says that his second most viewed clip in his career is the slap heard round the world.
He'll be all right. Luckily, people are watching.
Exactly. He helped your career. You're infamous for something now. So thank Dr. D. Don't say fuck you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dr. D. We appreciate you for what you have done, sir. Next time you'll think about trying to, give out secrets about people.
Have some manners, like Dr. D said. So where do you place the David Schultz and the slap heard round the world in the season 2 ranking?
Dang. Okay. This one is tied with New Jack. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the Benoits was 1, New Jack, and this one is like 2 for me.
I would say Benoit is 1, Jimmy Snuka is 2.
Oh, okay.
And New Jack and David Schultz, I agree. They're very similar. Yeah, they're very similar. They're very similar. So I would say it's a tie because it was it's a lot of stuff that I already knew about the slap heard around the world, and Vince trying to deregulate, but it was great to kind of see it in a whole documentary type of form like we did. So it was definitely a great storyteller. It needs to be on convention. So if you're watching this,
man.
You organize a wrestling convention, get Dr. D, get David Schultz.
First of all, he said, David's like, so what are you going to do after this? He said, I'm about to go get a 18-wheeler and then drive a track trailer. Get this cotton and take it across over there and, do it overnight and then come back and do it again, over there, that way. I was like, what happened about, I guess he's too old to bounty hunt now? I don't know.
He's chilling now. I'm in retirement now. I've had 2 great careers. I was the greatest. I'm retired.
I definitely think he should be at a convention. Like he's another drunk uncle. He just white,
One-man movie right there. Dr. D, David Schultz, the one-man movie. And the story of Uncle Jerome, the story of New Jack. Those are our 2 one-man movies so far in season 2 of Dark Side of the Ring.
Absolutely.
Next week, we got Herb Abrams and the UWF. The UWF was a smaller promotion in the early 1990s, and Herb Abrams was the promoter. He became very infamous for his drug habits and becoming a very eccentric character in front of the camera and even wilder behind the camera. So this one is going to be very interesting. As the trailer said, he was one of the people's documenting it or talking about it on the documentary, says that he found Herb Abrams covered in Vaseline and cocaine. So that's what we got in store for you next week.
Oh, so next week is about nose candy and Vaseline. Great. Wonderful. Can't wait. I'm intrigued to listen to see it and watch it. I'm excited. Let's go.
Good stuff. Any plugs or where they can find you on social media, Miss Krssi?
You can find me Miss Krssi Luv _ or Krssi Luv _ on IG. It's been shortened because of other people have told me to shorten it. So, but I am the sensation Miss Krssi Luv. You can find me on IG, Twitter, and on Facebook. SmackDown with the Glitches. We are on a little bit of a quarantine hiatus. Sorry. We're working it out. We're trying to. Other than that, you catch me on True Hill Heat, Dark Side of the Ring, as we do this, and on True Heat every week.
Absolutely, every week you can check out our past podcasts for True Hill Heat, as well as our past Dark Side of the Ring playlist. That'll be up in the, right-hand corner, or one of these corners down here. Of course, push the like button if you enjoyed this video. Put your comments down below. Let us know what you thought about David Schultz and the Slap Heard Round the World episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Push the subscribe button and push the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on True Hill Heat. So for the beautiful Miss Krssi Luv, it is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. This has been Dark Side of the Ring Season 2 David Schultz episode review. Signing off until next time.